And welcome back in. This is Catfish on Ice podcast, episode 140, as we get you ready for the 2022 World Junior Hockey Championship. And we've got a great guest joining us, and that is Eric Dunay of On the Future, coming back to the podcast. Always have a great time when he joins us. We always learn something when he joins the podcast. And so, what better time than day one of the World Junior Championship? How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing well. Excited to talk about this tournament that's at a bit of a weird time of the year. So won't complain about hockey in August, though.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It snuck up on me. So I didn't realize it was happening today until literally yesterday. That shows you how disconnected I was from hockey. Like, honestly, August is probably the slowest month of the calendar, I feel like, for hockey, if you're a big hockey fan and stuff. So I haven't really been thinking about hockey nearly as much. And next thing I know, I'm like, wait a minute. That really big tournament that I love to watch every year is actually got rescheduled, and it's happening today. So yeah, it's awesome. Eric jumped in here on a busy day for him. So we're gonna talk about three really exciting prospects for the Preds who are going to be competing in this tournament. We're going to look at some teams that we need to be watching for and some other good stuff from Eric. Let's get it going here with let's catch up all the listeners here on why it's being played in August, what kind of happened, what kind of impact could this have on the players, because, athletes are creatures of habit, and so it might be kind of weird for them to be playing in August. Well, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so basically, if you might recall, this tournament normally happens in December and into early January. Last year's tournament lasted about 2 games, and then it was canceled due to COVID-19. That decision was, I think, very divisive, but regardless, here we are. And it was ultimately rescheduled for right now. So it's interesting. We're going to have the 2022 World Juniors here in August, and then the 2023 World Juniors will go ahead as scheduled in December. And I guess the two big developments here that have happened since last December are one, Russia and Belarus have been banned from playing in these IIHF tournaments. So as a result, Latvia and Austria have squeezed in. Well, Austria was already there, but Latvia squeezed in to take Russia's place. And then the other thing is teams were allowed to. So the World Juniors are an under 20 tournament, but teams were allowed to bring back players who would technically be ineligible this year, but were eligible in December. And they were also allowed to amend their rosters. So it's a bit of an interesting tournament. We're seeing a lot more 2022 draft picks, than we obviously would have last December. And on top of that, there's a handful of players who opted not to go play because they wanted to focus on getting ready for NHL training camp. They wanted to, not have to worry about injury. I think the team that those concerns have probably hit the hardest is Slovakia. Their 3 best players are all not playing in this tournament because of those concerns. So it's a bit of a different kind of field than it normally is, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's an interesting layer that you laid out there about the fact that training camp is just like around a month away, basically. And so if you're a really highly touted draft pick and prospect, then it brings up a really tough decision that you have to make personally, because I'm sure almost all of these players want to play in the World Juniors, but at the same time, if you've got high NHL upside, you don't want to risk an injury. You don't want to risk anything that could negatively impact your NHL path. So didn't even really think about it from that perspective. But yeah, it's just the NHL calendar is still not completely caught up based on what happened with COVID-19 and everything. Okay, so let's get to who are some of the favorites this year. I know that it's always Team USA and Team Canada, obviously. So we can talk about some of the players on each of those teams that we should be watching that I'm sure a lot of people already know about. But give us another, dark horse team, whether it's Finland. I know Finland's always up there. Give us just a couple teams that we're really watching for, and maybe your dark horse team that might be able to give Canada and Team USA a run for silver or gold.
Yeah, without the Russians, it kind of opens up the pool a little bit. Unfortunately, this tournament is going to feel, particularly with some of the better talent on some of the lower teams not coming. I think it's going to feel a little top heavy. You mentioned Canada and U.S. And Finland and Sweden will join that club. Off of that, I mean, the Czechs I think have a good team, but they have done their best to stumble and shoot themselves in the foot in recent years. So who's to say, how exactly they'll compete? I think Finland's going to be an interesting team to watch. They've kind of created this mold of junior player that they produce, and that group has been really successful at the U20 level for a handful of years now. So Canada and to a lesser degree the U.S. are kind of the high, the high power teams here, but Finland, I think it has the ability to take advantage of some weaknesses. Particularly Team USA has continued their tradition of not just picking their 25 best players for a tournament. Notably, Frank Nazar, who was the Blackhawks' 13th overall pick this past, or I guess a month ago, was left off their roster. A curious decision. Logan Cooley will be there. Matthew Nyes, Thomas Bordeleau, Matt Coronado. But the team to beat is really going to be Canada. They're headlined by Mason McTavish. He's a Ducks prospect who is quite good. Behind him, Ken Johnson, the Blue Jackets, Logan Stankoven with the Stars, Josh Roy with the Irois with the Canadiens, and then I think the big name of this tournament and the person everyone's going to be talking about once Canada gets underway is Connor Bedard, who seems on track to be the first overall pick next year in 2023. He is, for all intents and purposes, he could very well be Canada's best player at this tournament. So we'll have to see what that looks like. I think they're going to be the tough team to beat, but Finland and Sweden should be able to give them a run for their money.
Yeah, I've been seeing some clips of Bedard, and this guy his highlight reel tape is fun to watch for sure. So that's going to be a big one to watch, a big player. Team Canada is always going to put it out there. But yeah, Finland and Sweden. And then let's kind of like segue into the three Preds prospects that are competing. We're being joined by Eric Dunay of On the Future of SB Nation. Let's talk about the three Preds players here. We got Simon Knack of Switzerland. We've got Jesper Camil of Finland, who was this year's draft pick in the first round. Many people say he was a major, major steal for the Preds, and not a lot of people expected him to fall as far as he did. And then we've got Anton Olsson of Sweden, the defenseman. So let's go ahead and start with Anton Olsson and get your thoughts on him. Some of the things I've read out there is just he was a third round pick in 2021, and he's got some good skills for sure. Maybe he could track to be a third pairing defenseman in the NHL eventually. But I want to get your thoughts on what you're looking for from him, because honestly, I haven't seen a lot of. He hasn't really gotten a lot of junior, other than junior play. I really haven't seen a lot of professional play from him, from what I'm seeing. So I'm really interested to get your take on Anton Olsson of Sweden.
Yeah, he's an interesting player. He, when he was drafted, his the biggest, I don't want to say concern, but the biggest, I guess, knock on his game was that it was really always concentrated in his own end. That's not to say that he couldn't get the puck out of his own end. He just contributed almost nothing offensively. That certainly is not an easy path to get to the NHL, but I think he, over last season, playing in the Swedish SHL, he made some good improvements to his offensive game, and he'll be switching clubs this year over in Sweden to play for Skellefteå, which is where Adam Wilsby just came from, and taking on more minutes, taking on more responsibility on special teams. But yeah, you're right. He's your kind of traditional, third pairing defenseman. He's solid defensively. When he played, he was on Sweden's World Junior roster back in December. He got some significant penalty killing time. He looked pretty solid overall, although he was, I will politely say, embarrassed by Matvei Michkov on a goal against Team Russia, which there's no shame in that. He'll
Yeah.
probably be a top 5 pick in the draft next year. But he is a solid defenseman overall. The curious thing about this year, he was actually initially left off Sweden's roster for this makeup tournament because they had invited a handful of 2022 draft picks that were, first rounders. And then because one of them pulled out, again, wanting to, be more prepared for the start of the regular season, all that stuff, Olsen was added back to this roster. Simultaneously, he is also on the camp roster for the 2023 World Juniors team, and their training camp is actually happening later this month. So he's pulling a little bit of double duty right now. I think this tournament will be interesting for him in practice and in the pre-tournament games. He's been lining up as an extra defender for the most part. So we'll kind of see how much ice time he's going to get. The other thing I'll add to that is in Monday's pre-tournament game against Canada, he suffered an injury. Unclear the severity of it. He did not practice today on Tuesday, but he hasn't been ruled out for their first game, which is tomorrow. So, that'll be something to monitor. But, if he does play, depending on how much time he gets, expect a quiet tournament, but a good defensive effort is particularly against high-end talent that he'll be facing, will be a positive result. So,
yeah. And then let's get to the other two prospects here for the Preds who are in this tournament, who will have significantly bigger roles for their team than Olsen does. Let's get to Simon Knack, who is honestly a prospect that the more I look up his stuff, the more interested and intrigued I get by him. I feel like he's got some upside here. I love that he's a winger. I love that he's got a two-way ability to him from what I'm reading from scouting reports and stuff, and from the stuff I've seen from you as well. And so I'm really, really excited to actually watch him for Switzerland in this tournament. Just wanted to share Hockey Writers, which put out a lot of good stuff, tags Knack as a player to watch for a Swiss team that's probably lacking a lot of scoring talent. And so maybe Knack can stick out as a player who is going to be captain of this team. So, and he's a good two-way player apparently. So, Eric, give us your thoughts on Simon Knack, who was a 6th round pick in 2021.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, two-way game is really good. He was playing in the professional league in Switzerland last year. He'll be back there again this year. Didn't put up a ton of points, but it's a men's league, so that's to be expected. He was drafted as an overager, and I think has really taken good strides in improving his skating. Skating speed was kind of always the big hiccup, but he works hard. This is a tournament that I think he'll do well in. Switzerland is going to struggle against part of their group. They've got USA, Sweden, and then Austria and Germany. They should have the ability to come out of that group in third place and make it to the playoff. And if they do, he'll be a big reason why. As you mentioned, he's captaining this team. He's playing on their top line. He's going to be their offensive engine, and really just works hard around the net. He certainly has the ability to score a nice goal, a Joachim Kemmel's type goal, but most of his efforts come, in tight areas around the net. And he's going to be that, balance leader for that team. And it'll be interesting too, because he was actually kind of patient zero for the COVID outbreak in December. He was the first player who tested positive when teams were flying into Canada. And he actually had a quarantine right away and never got to play, and was stuck in a hotel room in Red Deer, Alberta, well after the tournament was canceled until his quarantine was over. So he's technically aged out of this tournament, but obviously got grandfathered in. So this will be his last kind of go at things. And, if the Swiss kind of do anything special this tournament, then he'll certainly be a big reason why.
All right. Awesome stuff there. All right. And then finally, let's get to the player that everyone's buzzing about right now because of just time-wise. We just drafted this player, and that's Joachim Camil of Finland, who it's looking like the Preds got themselves another bargain draft pick here, possibly. That's what the consensus seems to be. You've got yourself a really highlight reel type of goal-scoring player. And so for obvious reasons, we can't wait to watch Camil, who's playing for a really good Finland team that we've just previously mentioned might be able to be a dark horse team in this tournament, as they usually are. They're always a really good competitive team in this tournament. So he's going to be one of their top line wingers in this tournament here. And I just want to get your thoughts on what you're expecting from him. Do you think he's up against any kind of pressure? Do you think he's got something to prove? Do you think maybe he's got a chip on his shoulder because he wanted to be drafted higher and now he's going to prove it? I don't know. I'm really excited to see him play in this tournament.
Yeah, it should be a great tournament from him. It's interesting. I think in normal circumstances, you might be right in kind of having that chip on his shoulder, but really, I think there's almost two other players on his team that a lot of folks' attention will be on for that reason, and that's Atirati, who was once going to be a very high 21 pick and fell all the way to the second round, and Brad Lambert, who for years was discussed as a top pick this summer and fell all the way to Winnipeg late in the first. So a lot of folks are going to be paying attention to those two, but that's kind of the brilliance of the Finns is they don't necessarily have a Connor Bedard, but they've got a number of players who are responsible in their own end. They are thorough in the neutral zone in breaking the puck out and getting it up the ice, and they can score when they want to, either on special teams or at even strength. And that's what Camil's going to provide. He is going to be this team sniper. On the power play, the offense is going to run through him. He's going to be someone this team looks to lead them in putting the puck in the back of the net. So it'll be an exciting tournament for him. He'll be back in December for the 2023 World Juniors as well. So, he'll probably, along with fellow Preds prospect Kasper Kulanami as well, who's not playing in the 2022 World Juniors. But, I think teams are going to have their hands full with who they're going to have to manage when it comes to the Finnish roster. And that should bode well for Camil, who I think will have plenty of opportunity to score and plenty of opportunity to showcase why he certainly should have been picked higher than 17th, but we're certainly glad he wasn't. So.
For sure. All right, it's going to be fun stuff. All right, let's end it with this here. Let's get to some Preds prospects that are already way further along, obviously, in their career path, and just kind of get an update from Eric here on what it's looking like in the short-term future for some of these big names. Let's go ahead and get it started first with Yaroslav Askarov, who we're just patiently waiting. We're just like, oh, we know you're coming. We've been talking about it nonstop. It's so refreshing and it's so good to know that he's safe and sound. And he, with the whole Russia-Ukraine war and everything going on right now, it was just a really scary time when you're thinking about all these Russian players who were trying to get back out of that war zone. And so I'm seeing all of his social media pictures that are just hilarious. He's just a ball of energy and he's so funny, and I can't wait to see him in a Preds uniform. So let's start with Askarov here. What's it looking like for him this year? I'm thinking he's probably definitely going to be with the Milwaukee Admirals, and I can't wait to see what he can do in the AHL level.
Yeah, so he'll be in Milwaukee. He's spending his summer in Nashville, which is great. Getting reps with the team, and after development camp, I think this year the biggest thing for him, it's not even going to be about like, oh, is he leading the AHL in save percentage? Is he leading the league in shutouts? Whatever. It's just about playing time. The past 2 seasons he has really struggled to see the ice on a consistent basis. Earlier this year, David Poyle said that he was being punished by St. Petersburg for wanting to come to North America and being withheld playing time. They have a deep organizational, depth chart over there. So I think that's certainly part of it. But it'll be good just to get him regular reps, especially against, on North American ice against this competition. I think the interesting thing here, though, is all of a sudden, at one point the Milwaukee goalie situation looked fairly clear.
I know where you're going with this.
And now all of a sudden it doesn't. And that's deeply frustrating because, look, there's nothing more Connor Ingram can do in the AHL, right? He is graduated from the league. He's not going to get any better. I think everyone would agree he's a perfectly fine NHL backup. And then this team goes and signs Kevin Lankinen, who, say what you will about him, played for a horrible Blackhawks team, whatever. So that begs the question, like, they're not going to keep 3 goalies on the roster. So then what are we doing here? Is Ingram going back down? And then is he splitting starts with Askarov? I don't think it's smart that Askarov plays 65 games this year, because that's, a huge workload for anyone, but like a minimum of half the starts, right? But then what do we do with Devin Cooley and Tomasz Vamashka? The Preds are currently without an ECHL affiliate. So all of a sudden, like,
you've got this log jam right now.
Exactly. Right. So, I trust that, like, look, I don't think the Preds are stupid. They know that Askarov needs playing time, and I trust that, he'll certainly get that this year, but it is kind of curious to see what, that the goaltending increase in Milwaukee is going to look like. So there will be a lot of watching for this year with him, namely just, the number of starts, the playing time he gets, and just calming down his game a bit. He's an athletic freak. He's got that going for him. But calming his game down to the point where he can rely on his glove hand more steadily, where he can utilize his cross crease power more effectively, so he's not flying all over the pace, and working with this team's, goaltending department. Dave Rook, I think, is really going to help him adjust to that North American ice. So that's kind of what I'm looking for this year.
Yeah, no one needs to freak out if he has some hiccups out of the start here, because, I mean, with everything he's been through and with not getting regular playing time, it's going to be a slow process, but you got to trust the process, which is what they like to say in all sports. Trust the process. We know the talent is there. We know that what he's capable of. So let's be patient with him. But yeah, the whole thing with Connor Ingram and the monkey wrench of Kevin Lankinen joining, which, hey, I think he can be a quality backup, but I also think Connor Ingram can be a quality backup as well. So it really is peculiar to see how this is all going to work out with the goalies, both in Nashville and Milwaukee. But we'll have to wait and see. All right, let's get to another one. And this is a super fan favorite here. Someone who another player who we're like, we know eventually he's going to get some NHL minutes. It's a matter of when. Will it finally happen this season? And that is Igor Afanasyev. A lot of fan favorite when it comes to the prospect pool. There's so many Preds fans who just love Igor, so excited about what he can bring. So does he make an NHL debut this year, Eric? Does he finally make it in to the Preds?
Yeah. Well, I don't want people coming at me with their pitchforks, but I'm going to say probably not. I mean, it's certainly possible. Injuries obviously create, a lot of question marks about who will be called up and who will not be. He'll definitely be starting the year in Milwaukee. I think his first season in the AHL was fine. If you just look at his kind of box score stats, 33 points in 74 games is not bad for a first-year pro. But he certainly had his struggles at times, and that resulted in a few games of being a healthy scratch as well. So it's clear that Carl Taylor thinks there's more work to be done there. And, with the data I tracked, I think that's evident. Just 12 of his 33 points were primary ones scored at even strength. Obviously, scoring on the power play is good, but you need to be able to score at even strength too to make an impact in this league. And the big two things that I noticed are the skating separation. Something he really struggled to adjust with at the AHL level was just getting separation from opponents. And that just comes with added power, that comes with added strength, that comes with better crossover steps. And that's part of, your development. And the other thing is, we've always known he likes to shoot. He shoots the puck a lot, but kind of a byproduct of that lack of separation was a real lack of high danger shot attempts. This past season, in the 10 games of his I tracked, he recorded 11.6 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Just 2.11 of those were from high danger areas, right? So you're not going to score a ton of goals just like ripping wrist shots from the top of the circles, especially against pro goalies. So those are two areas that I think are really key for him to work on. And I do trust that he can make those changes and improve in those areas. But, I don't think he's ready for NHL. As much as I think everyone's excited to see him in the NHL one day, myself included, I don't think he's quite there yet. But if he can turn into a really productive top 6 winger in Milwaukee this year, then that's a big boost to that club and a big boost to his development. So.
Yeah, and it just goes to really show you and illustrates it that it's a really difficult journey to the NHL, even if you are a very talented player like Igor Afanasyev is. It's hard. It's challenging. It's a very complex set of skills that you have to be a regular on the NHL level. And so a player like Afanasyev is you just want to keep seeing him round out his game this year in Milwaukee. And some good things will come from that. All right, let's talk about one more player that really took the prospect pool by storm last year. I mean, just highlight reel after highlight reel, and just took the OHL in the what was his team? The London Knights, right? Yeah. Is that it? Luke Evangelista is who I'm alluding to here. Luke Evangelista is just, I mean, people can't get enough of him. He's so exciting to watch. And I guess what I want to get from you here, Eric, is what's the next step for him in his process? Because he's definitely got a little ways to go here. But what's the next step in his process? What are some things that he needs to improve on? Because it's probably hard to think about some things to improve on because he had such a great year putting up video game-like numbers, but there's always room for improvement. So let's talk about Luke Evangelista here.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's been a while since this club has really had a Canadian junior prospect with this kind of clout. I mean, Tomasino scored 100 points in his last year in the OHL, but he was, I don't think, putting up the highlight reel, goals that Evangelista was this past year, and he ultimately led the league in goals as well. So I guess since the Alexander Radulov days, have we really not seen a Canadian junior prospect with this kind of pedigree coming in to the organization? But you're right. He had an unbelievable year last year. Led the London Knights in scoring 111 points in 62 games. He took 341 shots on net, which is unbelievable. Like most nights was like 7, 8, 9 double digit shots on net. So he's a really exciting player. He got a bit of a taste last year in the AHL because the OHL didn't play due to COVID. Joined up with the Chicago Wolves for a bit and was, I will be honest, was not good. Was pretty unimpressive, but that was to be expected. He was a year younger. He wasn't nearly as strong. He hadn't played with pros before. And, I talked to him around then and he highlighted, the two big things that he wanted to work on, which kind of go hand in hand, were his strength and on top of that, his shot. He's got unbelievable hands, but he doesn't quite have like the heaviness behind his shot that maybe Eeli Tolvanen does. Not to say he's not a good shooter, but, there's certainly some strength to be added there. So he'll be in Milwaukee this year, and it's going to be an adjustment. He's not going to put up 30, 40 goals in the AHL this year. Just like Afanasyev did, just like previous prospects had. There's going to be a learning curve when he gets to the AHL, and I think a big part of that will just be the defensive responsibility. It seems kind of cliche, but there are many nights in the OHL and juniors where defense is optional. Particularly for players at the higher end of the lineup like him. Mm-hmm. Many of games of his I watched where I did not see an AHL or an NHL level back check. And that's fine when you're winning 6-0 against like the Saginaw Spirit and you've already scored 3 goals, So, but that doesn't really fly at the pro level. So I think that's going to be a part of it, is just, making sure he's tightening up those defensive responsibilities, making sure that he's, being active in the breakout when he's off the puck, being active in the neutral zone when he's off the puck, not just waiting for that pass from his teammates. And through those improvements, goals will come because he's not going to be able to beat defenses as easily as he was in junior. And so you're just kind of layering those skills up the ice. And, you got to trust that Carl Taylor and his staff will be working with him on that. And, even if he doesn't have an incredible year this year, then there's nothing wrong with that. He's not going to be an NHL star right away. So a couple of years in Milwaukee will certainly be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's definitely going to be tested because the AHL, they do play defense. It's a much more defensive minded league. So it'll be interesting to see his transition into that, as it always is. Bring up Tomasino. That's why I'm kind of so impressed with what Tomasino did in his first full NHL season. I know he didn't like put up crazy numbers and we saw all these individually great years from Yossi and whatnot. And so Tomasino got lost in the shuffle for the Preds, but he had a really, really solid first NHL year. And so it just speaks to volumes of Tomasino and his development, his crazy talent level. And I can't wait to see what he does this year as well. So many great young players are coming through this system, and it's great to see because it was kind of stagnant for a while. I don't know if you'd agree, Eric, but the prospect pool was super stagnant. You were seeing the team get older and older and older, especially going through the Stanley Cup year. You weren't seeing a lot of young injection into the lineup. And now we're finally, even though we're not rebuilding, they don't want to call it that anyway, we're definitely seeing finally an injection of young talent. And it's so awesome to see. So we're going to be calling on you more and more, Eric, because there's plenty of good young players to talk to. So we've been joined by Eric Dunay of On the Future Preds Prospects of SB Nation. Go follow them on Twitter and get all of your information. That's at On the Future OTF on Twitter to get all of your knowledge on the Preds prospect pool that keeps getting better and better. Thanks, Eric. I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
All right. This has been episode 140 of Catfish on Ice. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll have a brand new episode coming to you next week. Stay safe. Take care. Be kind to one another. We'll see you next week.